Hello, my name is Eva Adams, and I guess you can call me an online activist. I'm an American living in Berlin, and I've done a few of these videos before, primarily on my most passionate issue, which is the global disinformation machine. Um, I have a lot of trouble talking about these things and doing these videos because I have a chronic pain condition called fibromyalgia, and I've been what they call flaring quite a bit in the last weeks, especially the last 2 weeks, with the situation in Ukraine. And I've decided that it's an opportunity to show how the disinformation machine works with the tactics that are Putinism equaling Trumpism. That's the most important point because we're talking about a war between fascism and democracy, and those we're fighting against are trying to destroy democracy through the global disinformation machine. And that's why I am just really passionate to try to get more people to understand what's going on, to understand the big picture of how they do this. I know most understand all the little parts. Just about everybody gets it. But what can we do about it? That's the hard part. And that's the hard part that I've been trying to figure out with the groups I'm in. And I decided to take this opportunity through using a video because I'm inspired by John Bridvo and several others. John Bridvo started the Blue Dot Family, which is a group of wonderful people online um, who mostly live in red states or red districts, and they have to deal with being confronted with those who are disinformed on a constant basis. And it's extremely difficult because they can almost never be in a situation to vote and turn the situation around. But we have to keep trying. We have to keep supporting every Democrat that is in these red areas and find ways to expose how the disinformation works and eventually find those people on the edge that are possible to work towards change, because the totally duped are impossible. You can give them up. You can just let it go. That's one of the most important things that I want to talk about because we rant against those people. And what we need to do is rant against the machine and those who produce the machine and put out the materials, because they are the fascist propagandists, not the believers. And if you can just get to the partially disinformed and start to get them a little bit more awake, then you're in a completely new situation. One of the videos I watched recently was somebody in the network to uh, reach Russian families that are connected to Ukrainian families And the Ukrainian families are calling home to their parents, to their cousins, friends, whoever, and they're telling them, hey, mom, there's a war going on here. And their parents don't believe them. Those are the ones who are totally duped. And you're going to have this exact same situation in the United States where the Americans have completely cut off uh, their relationships with their parents or their siblings or old high school friends because, you know, they believe in the big lie. They believe Trump is still president. They don't believe the words you say. You know, just like the Ukrainians calling their Russian parents, and they don't believe a word they're saying. There's no war going on. This state media that goes on in Russia is somewhat of the equivalent of Fox News and OAN and Newsmax. OAN is gone, yay. RT, Russia Today, has been another medium, and that's gone for the Americans, thank goodness. So there are possibilities to try to bring this machine down, which we've got to be involved in, because it all works together. It works across the entire world. It works with Bolsonaro and Modi and all the far right parties across Europe, and it's possible that if they understand, or if we understand how this disinformation is working, that we might be able to catch some on the edges. We have to remember that the constituents in the United States are differentiated. They are not all Trump fanatics. They are also just people that don't pay any attention to the news at all. They're just uninformed. They're not disinformed. They just don't care, or they're just too busy. And we need to try to get to a point where we can do some forgiveness. The reason I wanted to get back to that video from the Ukrainian, or the Ukrainian trying to call Russia, he said, my mom didn't believe me, but I'm going to keep trying. I'm not going to give up. This inspiration right now from the Ukrainians has really gotten to my heart. It's an opportunity right now to stop giving up on those that we have cut ourselves off from. Just, it probably can't happen with very many. But yeah, I've actually taken notes. I put this together a couple of months ago with my crazy notes here. But I wanted to make these distinctions about the levels of duped, because if you are constantly battling trolls and the ones that are completely dug in, and you start seeing that all Republicans are like that, and you resent them and you hate them and you complain about them, you have bought into the strategy. That is what the disinformation machine is about, because it's about dividing us. It's about making us hate each other. And there's got to be an opening, an opportunity that we start to to look beyond hating those trolls and those idiots and those maggots and those, we can't, I can't stand them. And, well, I have to admit, I myself have had to distance from anybody like that because I get the sense they make me sick. I mean, they make me literally sick because it's so stressful to watch people brainwashed to even, but how can you call it brainwashing when they have access to the truth? Well, in Russia, they are getting to be in a position where they don't have access to the truth anymore. And my belief is that is exactly what Trumpism wants for the United States. Gradually, they tend to do these things incrementally and slowly. But the agenda of demonization of the free press and hoping to shut it down or just make it unprofitable is the way the GQP works. And that's what they want. They want to end truth. That's what they've been up to for years, or to make it unrecognizable. You can't completely shut off truth, but if you make truth unrecognizable and everything's unbelievable, then your lies will take hold because it's so they're so simple. Truth is complex. You have to explain it. It's like there are so many elements to an issue that's going on. And well, if you know, you just sleepy Biden, Ukrainians are just Nazis. Well, that's easy for the simple-minded, or the ones who don't pay attention to the news, or the ones who, you know, they've been with the Republican Party all their lives. They go to church. They believe that their lifestyle that's attached to the church is the right way to go, and uh, it protects them from thinking about all this other stuff. And with liberalism, well, it's all kinds of things that are going on with destroying families and uh, going in ways they don't understand and all this. So they're very susceptible and vulnerable to get into this tiny little view of the way people should be. And you know, the idea of expanding that so that gays are acceptable and minorities are acceptable, or at least some, or that is hard, but many have been doing it, and it's been increasing, and that's threatening. Just like it's a situation in Ukraine became democratic, accepting, multi-ethnic, brought in all these minorities to their universities, um, has become totally popular, 73% for Zelensky, and that is the threat to fascism. And that's why it was inevitable. It wasn't necessarily just NATO or the EU, but the popularity of living in a democratic state was the threat to Putin. And that is the situation where we're fighting the same battle with the GQB, the GQP. So I want to try to be shorter than I've been in the past, because I can go on, and I want to get to the methodology. There are three top um, themes in the methodology that I want to break down so that it's not as overwhelming. Strategic projection, demonization, and targeting. So, one of the things that has been just obvious as never before has been Putin's strategy of strategically projecting everything onto the Ukrainians that he is doing himself. And uh, if you want to go from the denazification to every little battle, oh, if it's the maternity hospital that they bombed, no, that wasn't us. Or well, maybe we were involved because it was a military target because of the Nazis. Azov, that's a Nazi militant group, and we had to get them out of there, or or we didn't do it. I mean, this is precisely the methodology that was used with the Republican Party denying the insurrection. It was, oh, no, that was Antifa. Oh, no, that was just, peaceful touristy types. They stayed within the ropes. This is uh, a constant that you're going to hear every single day in the Russian excuses and the denial is this usage of strategic projection. Now, what's unfortunate about this terminology is that projection itself, as a word, is something that's like a psychological term, like, oh, you're projecting that onto me, and it's something that's going on with you. Well, this isn't exactly the same when you're using it politically and strategically, because they are mentally using this strategy as a weapon. And they're doing it because they have their believers. And so if I accuse the other side, the opponent, of these things that are really bad, then it's a situation, well, I have to be the good guy because they're the bad guy. And so their believers eat it up. It's not possible that they could be the bad guy. And that's the way strategic projection works. All they need is believers. And they can simplify it because lies are very easy to put out there. And if you try to explain, but they're doing this and that, what's really, and we have the evidence, and like, but we can't really present the evidence because we haven't really gotten it together yet. But and it'll take a long time going through the international criminal court, and but as soon as we get the evidence, all that truth is great, but it's so frustrating for how long it takes to get it out there. Just like watching the 1-6 committee take more than a year to get the truth out, and it's not out, and we're just, and they just, oh, well, Trump is still president. No problem. It's easy. And what we have to do is hard. It's difficult. It's knocking on doors. It's talking with people. It's really it's helping young people to recognize that just because Biden didn't do everything the progressives were asking for, he's not a bad guy now. Um, it we just fight and fight and fight, and then the Republicans, they just figure out their ways to unite behind certain lies and keep them out there, and no problem. And that ease is what we're fighting. Um, so now that takes me to demonization. That's the other go-to on a constant basis. Demonization is, well, you know, Putin is calling the Ukrainians Nazis. He actually backed down a little bit, and in the UN they're calling them Ukrainian nationalists. Well, you know, because nationalism is so bad, um, and we're not nationalists. It anyway. Demonization is a constant, a daily constant with Fox News, with Putin all the time, and it's Sleepy Joe. It's everything is his fault. It's like he's completely in control of inflation and the gas prices, and everything is his fault, and therefore we're the winners. You know, this name calling, gaslighting, hyping up old myths, revisionist history. It's all the same thing that Putin is doing right now. And, oh, and also playing the victim. We didn't do that. Why are they accusing? Oh, they're waging a war against us. You know. And anyway, so third element of the big strategies of the global disinformation machine is targeting, and the way this whole targeting things is going on is with doublespeak. It's like, well, for one audience, you're going to hear the whole thing. Let's see if I can zap up an example. That essentially Mexicans are rapists and drugs and all that kind of stuff, or other blacks or the Muslims are all terrorists and da da da. But on the other hand, I mean, that's how they grab their far right and get that all built up. Oh yeah. And then on the other hand, in the churches, they have to have their Clarence Thomas, and they have to have all of their other token blacks because the churches don't believe they're racist. The people that go to church, no, we're not racist. We like black people. We get along with them just fine, and we like Latinos. And so the libtards are lying about us. They're lying about us, and we're the victims. And then you have, you know, reverse racism. Oh, it's white. You know, all the liberals, all the Democrats are basically racist against whites. Ha! Says this WASP here. I'm racist against WASPs. You know, never mind. I get livid and I get sick of it. Uh, but I think it's possible. For instance, with the church people, what about the Ten Commandments? What about, isn't there something like, thou shalt not lie? Can isn't it possible that every once in a while you can catch them? Basically, I don't believe it's going to work ever, 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 ever to lecture them. We have to find ways to question them. We have to find ways what's going on. Did you see that? Did you know that? There's to try to pull them out. I'm talking about the ones that are on the edge. We're not going to get the ones uh, that are in Dallas, convinced that John F. Kennedy is still alive. Uh, Although it seems to be fading out a little bit. I think Q is being replaced now by Z, which is Z is the big thing with Putin and his army, and they're fighting for freedom now. So I didn't even touch on how this whole thing has worked with COVID this last couple of years, and how many times these systems have just, or this methodology is, uh, and confusion and bad guys on the other side. And that's how I lost one of my best friends, and I was really close to her. I miss her a lot, and it still really, really hurts me. But she got caught up in the conspirituality movement, and they dragged her into the Trumpism movement, and I don't even know where she stands right now. I don't know if they dragged her into supporting Putin, uh, but it's possible because they all work together. It's all the same machine. I hope that seeing the war and watching the images, she might start to wake up a little bit, might start to recognize some of this strategic projection, might start to recognize that what I've been telling her for years had logic and sense to it. But I'm still afraid of her. And I don't know. I'm really afraid of her because it hurts so much to talk with somebody who's so convinced that something like COVID is a hoax, or it's being used against everybody to take away their freedom to be able to decide what to do with their own bodies. Uh, that fascist propaganda, disinformation machine really did a number on a lot of very good people, a lot of people that have been very spiritual, very caring, and it drew them in. And they might be the ones to bring back into accepting reality as opposed to the alternative facts because of their anti-war stance. And this is a situation, there are some of them in that whole religious community that are anti-war. They just want peace. Um, and that's why I'm talking today, because I want more people to see the opportunity we have here to expose that Trumpism is Putinism, and for the very, very few who are readers, it's actually Duginism. I've talked about that in my past videos in terms of what Alexander Dugin is about, and I don't want to go into depth about that now because I want to be short. Um, but I do want to say that Alexander Dugin wrote the playbook that Putin is following right now. Um, and it includes the entire strategy that he wrote in the Foundations of Geopolitics, 1998. And it's all about remaking, rebuilding the old Soviet Union and how you can do that. And one of the main ways is to hype up the extremists and the left and the right and get them to fight with each other, which is what we've been doing ever since with more and more, and how Trump got elected because of our fights that were deliberately hyped up, drummed up through Duginism, which was trained and brought to Trump and created Trumpism. And it's all coming from Putinism because Putin loved Duginist strategy and is using it. And oh, the last thing I'll point out about Dugin is that he was invited to the United States back in something like 2015 to meet with Alex Jones. Alex Jones invited him to meet in Texas with Republicans to develop this strategy, which Bannon and the rest of them developed. Stephen Miller, they have done such a good job that they don't need Russian trolls anymore. They don't need their big farms that were financed by the oligarchs anymore because they just adapted it and it worked so well that it's basically all American produced ever since. And also, Alex Jones had Alexander Dugin on his InfoWars show multiple times, at least more than once. So, yeah, they work together. They network together. It all is connected. And still is, even though you're always going to have bits and pieces falling apart and all this other kind of stuff. But let's don't get too much into our own demonizing of folks like Bill Barr. I mean, he definitely is a demon, but we need to use the facts part that he puts out as a tool for whenever these former people come out. Yes, be angry. Yes, keep calling him out. But like Michael Cohen, let's give him a chance to get the exposure of what really happened out there. And let's hope they fight with each other. I'm going to close with a meme that came up. We need to show up for the 2022 midterms as if we were Ukrainians. Yeah, because ich bin ein Berliner. Well, that's what John F. Kennedy said because he was on the side of democracy, and on the other side was fascism. And now even though they loosened up and they turned it into a capitalist, open, freer society, it has now become complete and total totalitarianism in Russia right now. And I believe this could or would be the goal of Trumpism and the GQP. But there are Republicans now that we're seeing, I don't know if we want to go that far. It doesn't look very good. There's a lot of people don't like that. And that's the kind of people that are not totally fascist, but partially, they've used it because they saw the power and it was exciting to know that they, but I think if we can start to work with this more moderate type, and I think there's more of them now than just the Lincoln Project, and if we can convince our young people and our minorities that we are Ukrainians fighting for democracy itself against those like Marjorie Green Taylor and Boebert, who, and Tucker Carlson, I mean, and the con man himself. They all must be brought down. I want to bring down Putin too. That's a harder challenge. But if we can bring down his, or expose his global disinformation machine, that it's been coming from him for decades, we've got a chance. Let's do it. And feel the Ukrainian spirit in your heart. Let's feel it in our hearts. Kumbaya, my Lord. Kumbaya. Kumbaya, my Lord. Kumbaya. Kumbaya, my Lord. Kumbaya. Oh Lord. Kumbaya. Thank you for listening.